All right guys, so we are done, we're good to go. I'm gonna turn the key off. Okay, let's turn off the key. Let's disconnect this scan tool interface. Now let's go back under the truck and look at the wiring harness. Hopefully we can find where the open is on that wire. If we can't find the open, we're gonna have to run another wire to the TCM. Alright, so we are basically done with our testing. I'm gonna get all these tools out of here. We're done with our wiring diagram. So our problem was no power to the transmission control unit, which was preventing the transmission from talking, okay? And this transmission control unit only has one power supply wire, okay? So I'm gonna get all these tools out of the way, and then we will follow this harness. Hopefully we can find where the open is. So I will do that, and then I'll bring you guys back up. So I opened up the wiring harness of the transmission control unit to see if I could find where the open was in the wiring, but unfortunately I could not find the open, okay? There was some electric tape around this area, so it looked like someone had been in this wiring harness. So I opened this area to see if our open was gonna be over here, but I couldn't find it. So the wire is good from this point all the way up there. And this wiring harness goes on top of the transmission and then up to the fuse box under the hood. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run another wire from the battery to the transmission control unit. I don't really like doing this, but I also don't wanna chase down this wire all the way to the fuse box to find the open, because it's just a pain in the butt, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to use this inline fuse holder, okay? So I'm gonna use a 10 amp fuse to supply power to the transmission control unit, okay? So this wire is gonna run from the battery and across the battery tray and through the frame and on top of the transmission. So I'm gonna run this wire on top of the transmission, and I'm gonna make it go along this wiring harness and all the way down to the transmission control unit. And this wire, I mean, as you can see, I have this roll of wire over here. This wire will supply power to the transmission control unit, okay? So I will do that off camera, because when we looked at the wiring diagram, the wire that's supposed to send power to this transmission control unit was coming from the battery. So that's why I decided to just get power from the battery over here, okay? And it's not gonna cause any problems. As long as we have a fuse in that wire that's gonna send power to the transmission control unit, we should be good to go, okay? So I'm not gonna show you this boring part of running this wire and taping up all these wires. I'm gonna run the wire and tape them up and reinstall the electrical connector covers. After I get everything back together, I will bring you guys back up so we can verify our repair, okay? I will do that, and then I'll bring you guys back up when I'm done. So I ran a new power wire to the transmission control unit, and I put all the covers back on the transmission control unit electrical connector. So I ran this wire, I hope you can see that wire over there, that red wire along the transmission control unit wiring harness. As you can see, everything looks good. So the wire I ran is over here, okay? So I'm getting power from the battery, and I have a 10 amp fuse in line with this wire. Okay, so I will let the customer know that that wire over there supplies power to the transmission control unit. So every time these batteries get removed, they have to make sure that this wire gets connected back to the positive terminal of the battery. Okay, so at this point we are done, we're good to go. Now I'm going to reinstall this transmission control unit bracket up on the frame. I will bolt it down, and then we will test drive this truck. Okay, so I'm gonna put this back together, and then I'll bring you guys back up so we can test drive the truck. I have reinstalled the transmission control unit on the frame. So the transmission control unit bracket is up there. I zip tied the wiring harness all the way up there because I don't want the harness hanging down. If it hangs down, it might touch the drive shaft. So I zip tied it up there and everything looks good. So now let's go inside the truck and start the engine. So if everything now is good, we should be able to start the truck with the key from the inside, and we should also see that the transmission light should be off on the dash while the engine is running. If all of that checks out okay, then we're gonna take this vehicle for a test drive. So now let's go inside the truck and verify our repair. Alright guys, so it is the moment of the truth. If we made the right call, if this repair has fixed this truck, we should be able to start it from the driver's seat. Okay, now I want to show you this transmission control unit again. I'm gonna tell the owner that this control unit is good. He should keep it because, as you guys saw, the problem on this truck wasn't a defective transmission control unit. The problem was an open in the wire, in the power supply wire to the transmission control unit. So this TCM is good, and this vehicle interface module is most likely good as well. So I will tell him to keep these because his problem wasn't the transmission control unit. So now let's go to the driver's seat and start the truck. All right, let's see what we got. I did put a charger on the battery because the battery was getting a little bit weak. All right, so now we're gonna use our key to start the truck from the inside. Remember before, you couldn't start the truck from the inside. We had to go under the hood and jump the starter relay. So now let's see. So key on, check transmission light comes on, and right there it went off. So that's good. So now let's start it. Awesome, success, it started. So as you can see, the truck is running, the check engine light is on, and the ABS light is on also. I'm gonna ask the customer if he wants us to fix these issues. The check engine light is on because the coolant level sensor in the coolant reservoir has a problem. The problem could be the sensor or the circuit of that sensor, and then the ABS control unit is most likely not communicating because when we scanned the truck, the ABS control unit was red, okay? It had a X mark on it, just like the transmission was doing. So we most likely have a defective ABS control unit or a problem in the wiring, okay? It's probably not receiving power or ground. Now, the customer brought the truck to us so we can fix the issue that was causing the transmission, the check transmission light to remain on the dash, okay? Because he couldn't start the truck from inside the cabin, and the transmission wasn't upshifting also, okay? So he brought the vehicle to us so we can take care of that. So that has been taken care of. If he wants us to fix this other stuff, we can also take care of that. So we're good right now. I'm going to test drive the truck and then we will see how it drives. Now it's getting late over here. It's almost 10 p.m. So I'm gonna end this video over here right now. I will bring you guys back up tomorrow so we can test drive the vehicle. After we test drive the vehicle, we will wrap up this video then, okay? So I'm gonna turn off the truck. I will take the truck outside. It's getting late, it's dark out here. I'm gonna leave the truck outside and then I'll bring you guys back up tomorrow so we can test drive this truck, okay? So we will test drive the truck to see if the transmission light will remain on while we're driving, and we're also gonna pay attention to how the transmission shifts as we drive the truck, okay? Remember, when we test drove the truck earlier, the check transmission light was remaining on when we were driving, okay? But right now, as you can see, the check transmission light is off, okay? So I'm going to bring you guys back up tomorrow so we can test drive this truck. So in case you have questions about what I did to this truck, so I'm gonna explain what I did once again before we take this truck on a test drive. So over here is our transmission control unit. When we first test drove this truck, the check transmission light was on the dash, and this transmission wasn't upshifting. Okay, so we came in the shop, we scanned the truck, we could not communicate with the transmission control unit. So when you cannot communicate with any module, the first thing you do is you check your powers and grounds. You have to make sure that the module is being powered. So when we came to this transmission control unit, we checked our power wire, this wire over here, pin 10. We checked this wire and we realized that there was no power at pin 10. Okay, and then we went up to this fuse over here that supplies power to this wire. We checked the fuse was good, but we still didn't have power at pin 10. So which told me that we have an open between the TCM and the fuse. So to confirm that, what I did was I back probed this wire over here, pin 10, and then I used a jumper wire coming from the battery, and I supplied power over here at pin 10 with a jumper wire. When I supplied power to the transmission control unit with a jumper wire, I was able to communicate with the transmission control unit, and we were able to start the truck from inside the cabin, which told me that the transmission control unit is good. Our problem was the wiring over here, this power wire not supplying power to the TCM, since we were able to communicate with it once we supplied power to pin 10. Okay, so after that I was trying to find the open in this leg of the circuit, but it was hard because I opened the wiring harness, I couldn't find an open, and then that harness goes on top of the transmission, and then from the top of the transmission it goes under the hood, and it was just so hard to get to the whole harness. So what I did was I ran a wire from the battery all the way to the transmission control unit. Okay, so I made sure that wire went along this harness and all the way to the transmission control unit connector. Now, if you look at this wiring diagram, it's basically the same thing I've done. Okay, the way this wire is wired is just what I did. So I got power from the positive terminal of the battery, and then I put a fuse, a 10 amp fuse, just like in this wiring diagram, between the positive terminal of the battery and the transmission control unit. So I ran a wire from pin 10 all the way to the battery, to the positive terminal of the battery, and I put a fuse in between in case there's a short or a problem. That fuse will open, which will protect the TCM. Okay, so after doing that, everything was good, everything is fixed. So that was what was causing this truck to not start with the key, and that was what was causing this truck to not upshift. Okay, so it didn't need a transmission control unit, it didn't need another transmission. The problem was the wiring of the transmission control unit. So now let's take this truck for a test drive. Alright guys, so it is the next day. So now we're gonna start this truck so we can take it for a spin. So I'm gonna turn the key on. So let's start the truck. So as you can see, the truck now starts from inside the cab. So now we can start it with the key, which is good. And then when you look over here, the transmission light is off. Okay, the check transmission light is off. The only lights that we have on are the service engine soon light and the ABS light. Okay, so the customer wanted us to fix the check transmission light, which we did. So now we're gonna take this for a test drive. Let's see how this truck is gonna drive. So before, this truck was being stuck on second gear. So now let's see how it's gonna drive. So they didn't need that control module right there. Okay, so let's go for a test drive. Alright guys, so as you can see, we are driving. The truck drives well. The truck is upshifting very well. So far so good. Our check transmission light is off, so we're good to go. So this is fixed. We have fixed what the customer wanted us to fix. Although the check engine light and the ABS light are still on, but we were not here to fix those two lights. The customer only wanted us to fix the check transmission light. Okay, so this is fixed. I'm gonna turn around so I can drive back to the shop, and when I get back to the shop, I'll bring you guys back up so we can wrap up this video. Okay, so we're good. This transmission shifts well. It's no longer going into the second gear lockout, so all is well. Actually, let me slow down. So let me zoom you guys into the dash so you can see. So we only have two lights on, the service engine soon light and the ABS light. So the check transmission light is no longer remaining on. Okay, so that's good. And if I turn off the truck, let me turn it off. So if I turn it off and I turn the key on, so now I can start it with the key. So right there, as you can see, the truck starts. Reverse, neutral, and then drive. So we're good to go. This is fixed, guys. So the transmission problem has been fixed, and the transmission control module not communicating was causing this truck to not start when you turn the key to the start position. Okay, so I'm gonna drive back to the shop, and when I get back to the shop, I'll bring you guys back up so we can wrap up this video. So see you guys at the shop. We are back at the shop. This truck is fixed. I'm gonna zoom you guys in the dash so you can see that our check transmission light is still off. So right there, only the service engine soon light is on and the ABS light, but the check transmission light is off. So this is fixed. This truck was not going above the second gear, and you couldn't start this truck with the key from inside of the truck. Okay, the truck had to be started from under the hood by jumping the terminals on the starter relay. So as you can see right now, we test drove the vehicle. The vehicle drives well, it shifts well, it upshifts and downshifts nicely, and I can actually turn it off and start it back up with the key. So right there, as you can hear, the truck is running. Okay, so which I couldn't do before. Okay, before I could not start the truck with the key. So right there, okay, before I couldn't do this. So this is fixed, guys. I'm gonna turn off the engine so we can wrap up this video. Alright guys, so I'm gonna leave it right over here. I hope you liked the video. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like the video, give it a thumb down. But if you do, you gotta tell me why so we can make better videos in the future. If you have any comments, questions, criticism, leave them in the comment box. And if this is your first time here, subscribe to the channel. Ring the bell so you can get notified every time I upload a new video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.